Seaweed isn't actually a plant. It photosynthesizes like a plant because it's got chloroplasts full of chlorophyll that suck up carbon dioxide and spit out oxygen again. But when we talk about seaweed, we're actually talking about a polyphyletic group, which is a bit complicated, but poly means many and phyletic is a fancy Latin name for family. So they're actually really unrelated species of organisms. Only the green algae, or the chlorophyta, like this Ulvalactuca, counts as a plant. The other ones, like the brown algae or the phaeophyta, don't count as plants, and neither do the rhodophyta or the red seaweeds. For this adventure, we're going to Bantry Bay in West Cork to talk about some of the latest gossip in the seaweed world with some people who are very committed to protecting it. They've very generously agreed to meet with us and fill us in. So could you introduce yourself?
I can give it a shot. My name is Tomás O'Sullivan. I'm a native of Bantry.
My name is Dolph Daunt. I'm from Bantry, and I'm involved in Bantry Bay Protect Our Native Kelp Forest campaign since the first public meeting, which was held in May of 2017.
It began just about 3 years ago, when people here in Bantry Town and around Bantry Bay became aware of a plan for the mechanical extraction of seaweed from the bay. It's a completely new, untested, experimental means of extracting wild seaweed, and it's over an area that's larger than the Phoenix Park. And despite that fact, there was no environmental impact assessment. There seemed to be no real concern on behalf of the government to determine what changes or what potential damages might come from just running this project through.
Can you tell us a little bit about the uses and the applications of the extracted kelp?
The company involved is called BioAtlantis, and BioAtlantis wants to extract two chemical compounds from the seaweed, I think lemanarin and fucoidin, which they want to use to enhance the gut flora of pigs. BioAtlantis has the idea that by using these chemicals, which are found in kelp, to reduce the amount of antibiotics needed in industrial pig farming.
Seaweed has always been part of our coastal communities because we can eat it, we can use it for fertiliser. If you go back and look at the film The Fields, the opening scene has the bull McCabe and his son picking up kelp from the shore and carrying it inland to fertilise the field that they're making. So seaweed has always been part of Irish culture. Still is very much strongly along the western coast, particularly in Connemara, in Mayo, Donegal. The traditional means of hand harvesting seaweed and using it are still a big part of the local community, the local economy.
You can hand harvest kelp and other seaweeds in ways that are sustainable. What I mean by that is that it won't affect the plant and it can keep growing. In a kelp plant, you have the holdfast, you have a stipe, and you have the fronds. And if you cut the stipe in anywhere along the stipe, the plant will die. And so if you were to hand harvest, you can easily cut an individual frond, and you can cut as many as you like, because you won't kill the plants. This is sustainable, or this is something that you can do over and over again. What BioAtlantis is proposing is to running a machine, a mower, over the ground, over the seabed, and just run through it. And they know that they've been honest about it, that they're going to kill whatever they're going to be cutting. This machine effectively would be coming into an area and sucking up 300,000 litres an hour, and you would be running it through the habitat where lobsters are naturally found. You have a machine that sucks up huge amounts from juvenile to adult, everything from crabs, shrimp, because shrimp live inside these kelp forests as well. They're a natural habitat for all this sort of marine life. It's the basis of the marine ecosystem. It's where you'll find all the small fish. It's a nursery for small fish. So it's a very complex ecosystem, but it's also taking out the kelp and sucking that up is it's very damaging, and that's why the fishermen came on board in massive numbers. That's why they wanted to stop this thing.
It takes a lot of money to bring a case to the High Court, but with a lot of support from the community, we've managed to do that. So we're in a stage right now where our case is before the High Court. It's a strange situation. We took a judicial review, which is something that usually lasts a couple of days. 2, 3, we were told maybe 4, 5, 6. That was last May. That was many, many months ago. So the case has gone to the High Court, the evidence has been presented, the arguments have been made on both sides. It took quite a long time to do that, and we're in a stage that's almost like limbo right now because we're waiting for the final decision to be handed down by the judge. As part of this process, we've heard of many other communities that are facing kind of similar challenges to their environment and to their livelihood and to their communities, and it is, you know, incredibly difficult when the only solution you have is to try and go around and raise a huge amount of money in order to take a case to the High Court in order to have any chance at achieving justice. So I suppose one of the things that's come out of our experience is that the system as it stands is, I'd go as far to say, is not fit for purpose, that there surely has to be a better way of ensuring environmental security, ensuring that the communities that are going to be impacted by proposed developments have a voice in whether or not and how those developments go forward.
So you say you've been involved since 2017 and it's 2020 now.
Yeah. You can see the lines in my eyes, yeah.
How have you stayed motivated, or how has the group stayed motivated after all of this campaigning, and what kind of keeps you going?
You get motivated from a lot of different angles. You get motivated from the point of view that you're meeting people who've never heard of it before, and they say, "Gee, this is crazy. We must try and do whatever we can." You get motivated from the point of view that because there was a nice group of us together, and kind of people are saying, "Well, if we can get this done, then we surely stop it." And it kind of kept spiraling, and the more you get into it, the more invested you become in trying to, because we started snorkeling, we started diving, you begin to see more and more what's down there. You begin to understand what's there, how it changes, what lives down there. It becomes, you know, something that you're not going to let go. This is not a sustainable development. This is not something which has any long-term. It's just a quick come in, smash, grab operation. That's the way we see it, and we'll try and stop it in whatever way we can.
One of the main problems in cases like these is that Ireland doesn't have a structured planning process for developments or projects along the coast. For projects on land, planning permission must be given by on board Planola, and getting that depends on an environmental impact assessment. Depending on the place, you don't necessarily have to do an environmental impact assessment for marine stuff. Ireland is in the middle of developing a national marine planning framework, which will outline a formal way that we make decisions in the marine world. How useful this framework is going to be is a bit of a question mark. For example, one of the people appointed to the National Marine Spatial Plan Advisory Group is John T. O'Sullivan, the CEO of BioAtlantis. Seaweed is an important ecosystem engineer and provides habitats for a whole range of species. We have always depended on the biodiversity which it supports for economically important species. The harvesting of the seaweed would endanger jobs as lobster and shrimp use the kelp forest as a vital habitat. In days gone by, seaweed was a really valued resource, and maybe we don't understand how important it was. A lot of people relied on the oceans for food during the famine, and some researchers believe we turn our backs to it now because we associate it with poverty. People used to literally fight over seaweed. It was such a useful fertilizer for fields. And in parts of the west coast, it was almost as important to have access to the beach for your farm as it was to have access to fresh water or the road. We still use seaweed for all sorts of things: cosmetics, food products, medicine, shoreline protection, as health supplements for ourselves, as health supplements for our animals, and yes, we still use it as fertilizer, although it's often in a more processed form. Many people are researching whether it can be used as a biofuel in the future. The seaweed industry in Japan, China and South Korea is worth billions. Ours could go in the same direction. Living within our bounds as a species is a hard thing to do. We've obviously exceeded many natural limits of the environment in things such as energy consumption and waste production. But not everything we do is bad. People hand harvest seaweed all the time, and it brings in sustainable jobs to parts of the country which don't have big industrial employers. If we're going to live sustainably, which is a word that's thrown around all the time at the moment, we have to have a thorough understanding of the world that we live in.